Hi there, everybody. I'm Fred Thomas, and you are watching Bike Tour. And today we have Don Seib of Barker Mountain Bikes, who's going to give us a tour of his bike. Don.
Yeah, thanks. So this is a Specialized Diverge Expert. It's pretty far up in the food chain of the Diverge line.
Nice.
So it's a carbon fiber. It has a future shock, which I want to talk a little bit more about.
Yeah.
It can handle both 700cc or 650B wheels. And it's got a 1x SRAM transmission, which is actually a 1x1 gearing.
Sweet.
With hydraulic brakes.
Nice. So this is a full-on gravel bike. Is that right?
It is a gravel bike. So in the gravel segment, you got people who ride cross bikes because they want to get dual purpose.
Right.
This is aimed at the gravel crowd. You could cross race this, especially if it's a tough, nasty cross race.
Right.
But this is aimed at the gravel market.
But it has open geometry, I believe is what they call it. So it's a mix of road geometry as well as some of the features of cross. And so I guess if you're done with cross and gravel, you can get out there and do your road ride. But
yeah.
Tell us about the gearing. This is and the drivetrain. It's unique.
Yep. So this is SRAM Force. It's brought over from the mountain bike world. So 1042 cassette, so massive gearing in the back.
Wow.
Made it with a 42. So you got a 1x1 cog. So you can climb some pretty steep, gnarly stuff, but you don't lose the high speed with the 10.
Wow.
Also has the clutch derailleur, which is really, that's what makes 1x work, because basically it keeps the chain under tension so that you're not losing it off the front ring.
You're not dropping.
So, Yep, the combination of the tooth profile, the clutch, and the huge gearing, and literally you don't give up very much to a 2x setup.
That's remarkable. Wow. Well, what about the braking system? We've got discs. Is it hydraulic?
It is hydraulic. Yep.
Okay.
So they're force hydraulics. Again, just unbelievable modulation and feel. So no worries in the wet, no worries in the mud. They just work, and they work so well. So if you're out, in the springtime doing Raspatizza and it's 40 and numb, your hands are numb, you got one finger tension to slow you down. So, great brakes, SRAM, the best in the business, just really works well.
Well, it's matched with this special suspension headset or stem. And talk about that. This is something new.
Yep. So that's called the Future Shock, and it was actually introduced on the Roubaix a couple of years ago. And to be honest, I was a bit skeptical on it. If you go back in history,
retro gouch, right?
Well, there's been a bunch of failures in that place,
oh, yeah,
and you looked at it. There were things that were not durable. So I let it settle for a while before I had an opinion, and I threw it on one of my stronger riders, and he beat on it for about a year, and it just works. I mean, it's really bulletproof. You get to use a standard stem, so nothing proprietary. What you've got is a single spring in here, and actually you get 3 with the bike, so you get different levels. What's unique on the Diverge over the Roubaix is this is a progressive spring, so 150 pounds to 230. So in gravel, you're doing a lot more rugged terrain. You don't want the shock bottoming out, whereas in the Roubaix, which is their endurance bike, it's pretty linear.
Right.
So the spring is pretty bomber, the setup's bomber. There's nothing unique and proprietary. If you need to swap a stem to a longer length, you can.
Right.
And it's been remarkably durable. And the last thing is it just works. You want the tire to keep contact with the ground, and when you're doing really fast, bumpy descents, every bit of that control and your ability to be aggressive in the turn, that's what the shock's giving you.
And confident. No, that's fantastic. Well, I'd love to try it. Well, you match that with the hydraulic disc brakes. Okay, you're in control of your destiny, and you run, I think, what are these tires? 42 millimeter?
They come with 38s, but they'll accept up to 42s.
Up to 42. Wow. Right. So that's a very, very comfortable ride. Are these quick release or through axle?
These are through axle. So you get the through axle, standard 142, 100 front, 12 millimeter industry standard. What's nice about this bike is it comes tubeless compatible right out of the box. In fact, when we sell them, we convert them for 90% of the people. Tubeless allows you to run super low pressures, and this is where the industry hasn't caught up. The human mind still says, I have to run massive pressure because it's faster.
I know, I got that problem. That's from a lifetime of riding road bikes. But yeah, so what's
this bike is faster at 35 PSI than it is at 50. And until it feels faster at 50, but it's not. 35, and they've proven it. It's actually, they do the testing now.
Right.
So, and when you move up, this bike will also accept a 650B and a 47 millimeter. You're almost talking mountain bike.
Right.
And you throw that on here, you can run that at 20 PSI, 25 PSI, and you can literally run single track out on the trails with it. So, very versatile. You had a suspension, fork, with that big a tire with 20 PSI, and you have a bike that's extremely capable.
Right, and very a forgiving but stable ride. And tubeless tires, there's no inner tube there, so it's you're setting them up and put the latex in, and they're pretty durable. They don't go flat unless you really hit something, isn't that?
Yeah, you got to rip the sidewall pretty good, and just in case you do that, you got a compartment which is pretty nice.
Yeah,
you carry a CO2 a tube.
You carry a tube, right?
And your tool in there, so you don't have pockets full of stuff.
I know.
And
amazing.
Because we're not racing UCI and gravel events, you get a little aero advantage here, which is nice. You'll notice Specialized has kind of adopted this in all the tarmac too, so you actually get a little arrow here, and this design actually adds a little bit of flex. The narrowness and the softer modulus carbon actually gives a little compliance in the rear. So it's a bike that literally you could mountain bike on.
Right. It has a shorter chainstay too, I think, overall.
Yep, shorter chainstay, a little bit more relaxed head tube and seat tube, which give it a much nicer descending capability.
Right.
So you can get pretty rad on it if you want.
Man. Well, that's great. Well, and the weight on this is about 17, 18 pounds?
This is about 18. When it comes out of the box, it's got tubes, but you get rid of 200 grams of tubes, and that's a pound. And people realize that going tubeless has some learning curve. There's no question, but once you go there, you never go back.
It's like air conditioning. Once you get used to it, it's all done. Wow, that's great, Don. Well, thanks so much for that tour. It's speaking to me, and I'm sure it's speaking to a lot of other people too. All right, everybody, that was Don Seib of Barker Mountain Bikes talking about a Specialized Diverge gravel bike. If you want to see one in person, well, you know where to go. That's to Bethel, Maine, to Barker Mountain Bikes, or you can check it out online. That's all we got time for right now. Thanks so much for watching, and we will talk to you again soon.
All Things Bike with Fred Thomas is brought to you by Zentis, performance carbon wheels handmade in Austria for road and off-road riding. Zentis, next generation wheels. And Frame and Wheel eBay bike selling services. Time, space, cash. Pick 3. And AD Bikes, the modern face of Austro-Daimler cycling and the bike company of the future.